I think Australia and Canada and Switzerland and Norway will do reasonably well under the circumstances. And I think a number of countries, even though they're going to have a tremendous drop in exports from their country to others, I think Asia will do reasonably well, as will Latin America. And one of the reasons why is most of them did not have leveraged loans or leveraged real estate. You go to most of those countries, people build their houses for cash. And so you don't have this leverage like America and to an extent Canada.
All right, let's go back.
Spain.
So we have this predatory banking group imploding the world in their own documents by design to consolidate power, going into the next phase of looting and control, bragging, laughing to themselves. Let's go back to Iceland. In a nutshell, what happened there and their population saying no?
The use of fractional banking, as high as 70 times deposits by the banks, when 8 to 10 is normal under fractional banking, and the collapse of the system mainly because they made a lot of bad decisions, but particularly with CDOs, the collateralized debt obligation bonds, which came from America, which contained mortgages. And so the bankers took the country down, we'll just say simply because of incompetence. We know it's different. But anyway, it was the first example of a test by the international bankers. And now the Netherlands and England want the depositors who are in the banks that had branches from Iceland into those countries, they want them paid back. And
let's be clear. They're using anti-terror laws in the last year through England and the Dutch to seize people's bank accounts to supposedly pay the national debt, which was all made up. And Max Kaiser was in Iceland, and others have that we've had on, members of their parliament, with Goldman Sachs people there 2 years ago bragging. I've had multiple guests, talk about how they're just bragging that they set them up, and it comes out in the McClatchy newspapers, a 5-part series last year. We had the author on with internal Goldman Sachs documents, how they engineered the whole thing to consolidate power and destroy their competition. These are financial terrorists.
And that's what Max calls them, and Max does a very good job. I carry his tapes like I carry yours in my publication every week because I want to get the word out by people like yourself and Max that I can't do because I don't have the time, and it's wonderful information, so it goes in there. And so they want the people of Iceland, and there's not very many of them, to pay this money back, and the negotiations are broken down. There's a referendum coming in Iceland. Do we pay these people or don't we? And they're going to say, no, we didn't do it. The bankers did it. Why should we pay for it?
And even a month ago, the Times of London and other publications reported the bankers are now saying, okay, we didn't know this before, but it turns out our own bank assets in your country will pay back almost all of this. See, the banks were never even in trouble, the offshore banks. And so now, so they won't have a defeat if the people say no. They're like, oh, guess what? We already had the money. It's all just a fraud.
Well, what they want to do, besides make sure all of the gang of banksters have the money that they need and the power that they need, on the other flip side of that is they want to bring on austerity. And that will happen, and it's starting already, but it'll happen in a big way after this large meeting that I think is going to happen, revaluation, devaluation, default, etc. In fact, they're putting tremendous pressure on Japan right now to purchase more Treasury securities to make up for what China is not buying.
Well, Bob, I saw headlines last week with top Harvard professor advises Fed for national austerity. Everything must go to the bankers. It looks like they're getting us ready for shock therapy.
That's right. And that austerity is on its way. And that's why I think that they're going to finally dip into deflationary depression. And that's horrible, because that means that once it gets underway, there's no stopping it, and it could last 30, 40, or 50 years. I mean, last time we had it, it lasted 10 years during the 1930s, and we had another war. And that got us out of it. But this time, I think, with all of the austerity and the financial changes, we'll call them, we're going to have another war. And if you look at history, it's all there. They will do the same thing over again, only this time we're going to bag them.
And they've got their police state grid in place they think is going to help them carry this out when the people say no. Here's a Infowars.net Steve Watson article. Prominent investor. Pound could collapse within weeks. British currency is on the brink, according to billionaire financier. Billionaire financier Jim Rogers has predicted the British pound could completely collapse within weeks, sending shockwaves throughout the global economy and heralding the beginning of a downturn. So him and Soros are running around cheerleading all this now because they want it.
Well, that's because they're currently long the dollar, short the euro, and they're long gold. And in Jimmy's case, long commodities as well. And I do have that piece in tomorrow's issue, incidentally. And Jimmy came out later today and said, I never said that. And he's
but we have the video. But I mean, we have him.
I mean, what is he thinking about? I mean, if
well, he has disdain. He has disdain for the public. It's like Glenn Beck says global warming isn't real, and then when he talks to a liberal publication, USA Today, oh, I believe it. It's all real. It's great. It's good. I mean, we need it. I mean, we need these carbon taxes. Bob, I want to go to some phone calls here, and I'm sure they'll be all over the map, but that's fine. Let's talk to Shanky in Georgia. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex, Bob, thanks for having me on. Alex, thanks for being positive and delivering such a great message through all this, and Bob and Max and Webster, and I mean, everybody you've got on is just so solid. And then all the guys that you've got doing the writing and posting is really wonderful. It's very informative. I really appreciate it. Hitting up on something Bob just was talking about. Max Keiser was yesterday on a video. If you Google Max Keiser on Inside Story, Greek debt crisis, he says the same thing about Greeks as Bob just said about why the heck don't these people just fight back? Why do they accept it? Why do they just sit on their butts and, you know, accept these austerity measures? But my main question for Bob is and you've kind of discussed it, but Bob, where's all the money going? I mean, it's so plain and so obvious that we're being robbed blind. Our tax dollars being taken from us left and right.
Well, what they do is they engineer crises, they mass all the bailout money, then shut the economy off, and then buy everything up for pennies on the dollar. Very simple, Bob.
Exactly. And the money, in the case of the larger banks in the United States and in some medium-sized banks, is sitting over at the Federal Reserve in the form of a digit on a computer. And that's what they're doing with the money.
Yeah, for just fake digits, for just made-up digits, they get the whole world.
Well, that's what they think. But we're informing the public of the world, Alex, not just down the street here. I mean, you should see the emails I get from everywhere. We understand what you're saying. We know this is going on. We're passing the word through our country. Whether it's Malaysia was yesterday, Germany was the day before, it's everywhere. The public is waking up, and they're not going to get away with it.
I agree. Shanky, anything else?
Yeah, I agree with the total deflationary thing that Bob's mentioned, and that we've got to just deflate everything. I was a little bit more hopeful that we would be able to deflate to a point where we could afford to manufacture in this country again and come out of this mess.
But as Dr. Roberts says, we're already so deindustrialized, that's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, but if you set up tariffs, Alex, it'll work. It'll take a while, but it won't be worthwhile for a transnational conglomerate from the United States to make something in China and send it back in.
But that's why they're going to selectively enforce the carbon taxes, so we're not allowed to, and then China and India and Mexico don't have to.
They're not going to get them passed. I have decreed it. No, I'm guessing that they won't get them passed. I mean, everything is upside down in Washington. They're running around like a bunch of chickens that get their heads cut off.
And they're buried in the biggest snow in 50 years, literally buried. The government's so corrupt, most of their snow plows are broken down with lazy bureaucrats standing around. These people are crazy. I mean, crazy like a fox, but they're going to lose. Shanky, I appreciate your call. Bob,
Alex, the Lord works in strange ways.
That's ridiculous. And think about ClimateGate. They now admit everything's a lie, but they're still going to go ahead with it?
Well, the public is realizing what they're up to. Again, we got to keep on doing what we're doing, and we're going to win. We're on the path, and we have the momentum, and they don't.
Well, I know a lot of people prayed to God